All right. The time is now 12:02 p.m. We will call this meeting of the Economic Development Corporation to order. Please stand for the invocation and pledge. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for the rain that you have provided recently. We ask that you watch over us today as we make decisions for the betterment of Coppers Cove and its residents, Lord. Please guide us and make us have good decisions, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Join me in the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
J.C. Stubbs.
Here.
Elizabeth Russowicz.
Here.
Ted Gonzalez. Here. Brady Diaz.
Here.
Fred Chavez.
Here.
Fred Welch.
Here.
Diane Drussel.
Here.
Sheena Tanner. Here. Barbara Boulware-Wells. Barbara. She-
Okay. Do we have any announcements? No announcements. Item E, Citizens Forum. At this time, citizens will be allowed to speak on any matter other than personnel matters, matters under litigation, or matters on the regular agenda for a length of time not to exceed 5 minutes per person. 30 minutes total has been allotted for this section. Does not look like we have anyone for Citizens Forum. So we will move on to the consent agenda. Item F, consent agenda. All matters listed under this item are considered to be routine by the EDC Board of Directors and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Item F1, consideration and action on approval of minutes for the regular meeting held on April 26th, 2023. Brittany Sanders.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have attached the meeting minutes from April 26, 2023, not 2013. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? What is the desire of the board?
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Ted and a second from Elizabeth. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. There are no public hearings today, so we'll move on to action items. Item H1, consideration and action on approving the profit and loss report for the month of April 2023. Fred Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You can scroll along there in your agenda, but I printed out the P&L for April of 2023, and I'll go into our year-to-date performance as well. Just a note, a lot of this has to do with postings. There is no sales tax check included in this summary, so what you're really seeing is what was reported interest income primarily through our Bank Corp certificates of deposit, I believe, year-to-date. So if you took this month, we would show that we had a loss of about $63,000. However, we have confirmed through the city that actually our sales tax revenue for April was approximately $91,000. So that balance will go positive. It's just that it will reflect in the May budget. And also our sales tax from our portion of the sales tax back in the month of May, estimated to be somewhere around 122,000. To put that in perspective, for the same period last year, it was like 169,000, but this reflects the reduction of that 1/8 of a penny, and part of that in both April and May are where we're at. So later on in our meeting, we will look at how we have adjusted our revenue projections in our budget for the rest of the year and go accordingly. If you take the statement of financial position, which is basically is year-to-date, you'll see that we're running very well. That should be for the period ended April 23rd. You can see how our revenues have tracked year-to-date, and we're doing I think very well in that respect. As far as we've had revenues, and again, this doesn't include the sales tax revenue there that would be for April, but a little over $1 million, and really that's 10% ahead of what we had projected, which we were projecting somewhere around 909,000. So we will be ahead when we get that sales tax figure in there for the month of April, and you can see how our expenses have kind of moved along. As a handout to you, you have a statement of the financial position. This just shows, again, the approximate balances in our bank corp, which I guess now is really Cadence Bank. We'll get that around. The tax pool account, as well as the certificates of deposit that are on deposit there that we'll be utilizing for the Constitution Drive refurbishing and other prospects. So all in all, the cash position is well for us and going into the end of the year. And we can talk about, and I think a lot of that has been, our tax pool account has done exceptionally well for us. It's been trucking in just probably a little under 5% with the volumes in there. That's producing somewhere in the neighborhood of about $200,000 worth of interest income that we had not forecast, and those higher interest rates really started kicking in probably in August and September of last year, to be honest with you. So for this portion of the financial report, I think I have everything there subject to questions from the board.
Any questions? What's the desire of the board?
Move to approve the financials for April.
Second.
We have a motion from Elizabeth. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Brady. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe the next action has to do with a resolution for amending our current fiscal year budget. And I typed out some notes here on this two-page report that might help as we walk through this thing. And I'd just like to read that into the record. Because our operating budget will remain really close to what we have approved. And I break this into two areas. Our operating budget, which would be working in expenses from existing income, sales tax and interest, and then our capital improvements budget. So what you're going to see on the budget amendment will be some changes, but our year-end income is still projected to be in the neighborhood of about 1.6 million, and again, that has significantly to do to $200,000 worth of probably interest from our TML funds, which we don't anticipate having to access between now and October 1st. We had originally put like $10,000 into that budget, and so that's a big increase. You'll see on the expense side, our payroll increase has been adjusted upward from the original budget. That has to do with shifting Sheena from contract labor and part-time to full-time. Also, this reflects my evaluation, I think, from last month and the bump in salary there. You'll see that some other areas, supplies and materials, are less than projected. Part of that is actually, in the original budget, we had, I think, $20,000 in there for furniture, and that actually was expensed into last year's budget and is being reflected in the audit because of when that purchase was made. Our repair and maintenance funds will go down a little bit. This is just things we did to move into our existing facility. We installed new shelves, some new cabinets, did some prettying up, and if you go by there, you'll see we've got a sign on the front of the building now, too. Contractual services, on the lease payments, we were doing both a payment for our existing facility and our new office, all right, and the old office for about 3.5 months. So that has caused an increase in what would be our lease payments for the year. And those are what we call, and then we go into what we call non-departmental expenses, and either way to explain that is that's where we fund our marketing, that's where we fund our business retention visits, where we fund our business expansion visits, and actually that number will go down about $41,000. So $40,770 would be the decrease we forecast between now, primarily because we have not executed a building for an entrepreneurial center. We had $35,000 in the budget for this year, anticipating we might lease a facility. I think that's going to get pushed into probably the next fiscal year. We'll work off of that. So the operating budget that was adopted, exclusive of our capital projects, was about $858,017. The amended operating budget will fall in at about $898,553. Now, this reflects an increase of about $40,500 over what we projected. By our bylaws, this in itself would not require an amendment, but we are setting up, because of new personnel and so forth, we want the board and council to be aware of that, because the additional expenses that we're anticipating for this fiscal year will really come out of what I call our capital fund, our balance. A significant piece of that being on the rehabilitation for Constitution Drive. That originally was, we'd set aside a little over $2 million for that, and we just recently allocated an additional $315,000 to support that work. We've started working on the utility expansions for the property on Mashburn Drive. If you recall, we set aside about $126,000 to put the sleeves under the road in the month of April. We anticipate further expenses working to get the grant formalized with the Economic Development Administration between now and the end of the year, and there is a match, 10% match required to that grant. That's what we're estimating might be the cost that would be there. We're also working on, and actually that's about $1.1 million, I think, that we're looking, because we'll have to do a land purchase for that 50 acres to qualify for the EDA grant. We're also in the process of submitting a grant proposal to the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation. This is an update to, it was the Fort Hood, now Fort Cavazos rail study that was completed in 2018. There is we anticipate that grant will cost about $550,000. Again, we would have a 10% match in that, whether it be in in-kind services or cash, and that 10% match is $55,000. This is assuming that grant would be awarded in July. We'd be contracting in August or early September. As late as today, OLDCC wants us to get that grant in to use this year's money. And just in my report, I'll update, but we anticipate having that grant going forward either this Friday or next Tuesday, so we'll be on schedule. So the budget amendment, which you have the document there for you, I guess would be Exhibit A in that resolution, calls amending the operating budget by $40,536, and the increases on the capital projects, which would include about $1.1 million for Mashburn Drive, $315,744 for Constitution, which has been approved and adopted by council, but this just formally amends our budget. And what we'll have to do on the Fort Cavazos rail study match, which I believe with what we've spent in travel, what we've spent with a couple of consultants, will be probably in the vicinity of $75,000 out of this year's budget. Certainly, we have the reserves, we have the ability to work through this. It's just a question of adjusting that CIP, as we would call it, and looking at the adjustments that we've made to our existing operating budget. So, subject to your questions, that's where we are right now.
Any questions on item H2?
So the total increase is just 40,000?
So on the operating budget, yes, what
Okay.
we're really looking at on our capital projects will be what we do to affect the utility work on Mashburn Drive.
Yes, sir.
Also the plus up on Constitution and what we're doing going forward with the update to the rail study, we'll say, for Fort Cavazos. Probably the easiest way to describe that. And you'll notice, I hope I'm okay with that, Ryan, you know, our original budget had $550,000 put in there for infrastructure. Well, what we've done is just taken that $550,000 and rolled across those three areas, to let you know, okay?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, JC, did you actually read the item?
I'm sorry?
No?
No.
Did-
Let me read the item real quick.
Yep.
We were discussing item H2, consideration and action on approving resolution EDC 2023-06, amending the 2022-2023 budget for the Coppers Cove Economic Development Corporation.
Okay. So my question is, which of these items are you considering Exhibit A, the narrative or this?
Actually, I would use that pro forma in front of you.
Okay.
Brady.
So proposed budget amendment,
Right.
FYI 2020, okay. So I'm kind of confused because some of the numbers that you're saying aren't what's
Okay.
on this.
Let me see.
And I
What?
get a copy of that.
Well, and I will say, I've noticed a typo as well on the land exchange. I think it's got 7,500 on your copy, towards the bottom part, Brady. It should be 75,000.
Okay. And he also said the Mashburn is a net change of 1.1. You have new business park study, that net change is 1.2. So I was just looking for that 1.1.
1.1 is what we anticipate will be the cost of the land over and above what we probably have put into, I think it was $25,000 originally put in there for engineering work and so forth.
So of that 1.2, 1.1 is Mashburn, but the total net change is 1.2?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this 7,500 should be the 75,000.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll send you a corrected copy.
That was the other number I was looking for.
Any other questions? What is the desire of the board?
So I make a motion, we approve agenda item H2, consideration approving resolution EDC 2023-06, adding as Exhibit A, the Coppers Cove EDC proposed budget amendment FY 2022-2023 with the changes discussed here.
We have a motion from Brady. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a second from Ted. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, just, I want to advise the board, and as we go into our next discussion area, as we just say proceed with both of these projects, we anticipate with the EDA funding, that's a $4 million project. We could have up to $2.5 million of a match for that utilities that would kick into next year's budget. And also with the joint land use study that was completed in 2016, anticipating that this study, which will take place between August and August of next year, comes back with favorable results, we're going to have to go out and find some land. So to use either land or some other means to offset the appraised price of that land that we have there available to the city on State Highway 9, adjacent to the golf course, if I was to lay that out for everybody. There's about, I think, 270 acres in there. So we're just, I don't want to say I'm putting a placeholder in there, but I'm anticipating that to be, potentially another $1.5 to $2 million to get land acquired to offset that. So that will be part of discussions we have in our budget presentation going forward. But I didn't want to, we have to have control of the land to get the EDA grant, so that's the land purchase. So we know that's probably going to happen pretty quickly. The other side of this is a timing and contracting issue, is how quickly we can start to expend the funds, whether we start using our money initially and we come in at a phase 2 with the EDA grant or whatever. That's kind of a work in progress till we get everything finalized and see where we are.
Item H3, discussion and direction on the proposed budget for fiscal year 2023-2024. Fred Welch.
Today, all I want to do is hand this out and answer questions. This is a draft, which we'll sit down with the board, but it takes into account the proposed year-end budget and looking at where we would go forward. You'll note that I don't have a beginning fund balance in there because we're going to have to, once we get the April and May sales tax checks in there, then we can begin to project that fund balance forward and be more accurate. But we'll start with that fund balance and then work it down. What I would say is we anticipate about 1.1 million in sales tax revenue, and if this would be based on a quarter of a penny that comes in. We're just using really traditional where we've been at this point, from the city, and we're backing out that eighth of a penny. We've cut the interest in half because we will be taking funds out of that TML account.
Interest rates.
Probably, and the interest rates are going to go up or down, or probably down. So I just doing that, we're putting an operating budget in of $1.2 million. Make it really basic. This covers where we anticipate following the city's guidance for benefits, for I guess we'll call it cost of living adjustments or whatever it might be. Step increases, we've got all that factored into. No new personnel, and then a reduction in what we'd look at in rents, which would bring our operating budget, both administrative and non-administrative, somewhere approaching $951,000 next year. Two items that are adding, I think, additional to that is of course, we will continue kind of year 2 of this engagement, I anticipate, after we get results back from Nava Retail. But also, we're at a point where we need to totally, I think, rework our website. And we know that's going to cost in the neighborhood of about $30,000 from about two proposals we've received recently. So we're plussing up in those areas. And I'm still anticipating that we will have something done related to an entrepreneurial center next year. So we'll see where that takes us. the $2 million in what's called new business park study, I just really want to call that new business park. We'll look at that as the Mashburn Drive project is shown there. And we've put $1.5 million in under capital projects for the acquisition of real estate or other resources, depending how things work with Fort Cavazos, to offset whatever we have to do to get that land donation in place. Because once we get the study completed, we have phasing, that's the point where we can have a much better idea of probably doing some planning of how to redevelop that property, how to make it use, and I think it becomes a more appropriate time to try to figure out how to make that, since it does take time, to how to make that proper. So that's sort of what I anticipate for next year. But the programs will stay pretty close to the same in terms of outward marking. We've got programming set in there for Brittany. Hey, also for some workforce development courses, some events. Just an FYI, the pop-up event that we had scheduled in May that kind of got rained out will be June 10th, but we have a workforce pavilion there, and you've had 3-4 organizations contact you for a job training board to post out there that day? Brittany? 8. So we see that moving along quite well, and we'll keep working with that.
She's having,
So I think what we will do, and Brady, I'll sit down with you over the next 3 weeks, is, and we could get one other board member if you wish, JC. But
Sure.
Since we now have a treasurer, for sure, we'll put her to work. But we will review this. Off of that, I will develop also a program of work divided amongst the staff that will support each of these action areas. So this right now is just for question consideration. And as I say, we're trying to stay conservative where we still would be holding some money back in reserve, whether that be for incentives, unanticipated, whatever. Obviously, but I think it's a fair budget and it's balanced, and that's what I want. Isn't it?
Any questions or discussion? Can you pass those out?
You bet. Did you guys get a copy of this yet, or? Okay. Let me do that. There's so many budgets floating around here, I didn't want to hand them all out at one time. Really good. And what you'll see on that is the projected year end are the numbers that I think you just looked at with that one modification. Well, I don't know, this one may be right, Diane, but, so we're off to the races. This meeting and the next become probably the most critical in our budget process. And if we would need to have a special meeting for the next one to talk about it, we probably need to get that out of the way, only because to stay on schedule with submittal to the city, we'll have to take this adopted budget to the council, and it'll go up in July, public hearing, and then be approval or adopted in August, I believe, if that's right. August, yeah, so we stay right in line with where the city is in their budget schedule.
Should professional development go from 21,000 to 2,100?
And it should be 21,000. There again, we probably got to go fix that.
On page 2 or 3.
2.
No?
Let me see what you got there.
21,000.
Yeah, it should be 21,000. There's a zero there. You see that, Diane, on page? Yeah, we'll have to fix that. Yeah, so there will be go up a little bit. That's a good catch. Thank you.
Is advertising so less because we now have our in-house marketing?
Combination of both, yes. I think what we've been doing through our social media has been, hasn't really cost us beyond what we have to pay for our LinkedIn accounts and so forth. I'm not a really big believer of going out and buying full-page ads in real estate and site selector magazines. I think we get more bang for our buck going the other route, which is where we have money put in there for probably 3 key marketing events next year, and using our money there to build relationships with the individuals and so forth. In fact, well, Diana will report on a visit she had to Dallas here in the 11th of May, I guess. But I think we get a little more bang that way. We still need locally, to support, I think, those events that we can support legally, okay, in terms of how we promote the community, promote, we're open for business, that type of thing. And there could be some initiatives as things evolve with the chamber where we may be partnering with them. They will be meeting in June to put together, I think, a new strategic plan, and we'll kind of see how things roll out of that.
Nothing, there's no action.
No action, really. It just, as I say, I want to lay this out to the extent that J.C. and I can contact you to get your comments in. I think that's, where we are right now. And then we'll consolidate those comments into what would be the formal budget for adoption by the board at the June meeting.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for that. We'll move on to item I, reports from staff, outside entities, advisory committees, and boards. Item I1, update on EDC activities. Diane Dressel.
Thank you. As Fred mentioned, I did a Dallas road trip with the Greater Central Texas Partnership Marketing Group that we're with. And it was just a one-day thing. We had 5 appointments set up. And the mission for those is to basically let those site selectors in those areas know more about our city and about our region and that we're here and what our inventory looks like and stuff like that. So out of I think we had 5 appointments, and one of them was Ann, but the others were good. They were informative because they kind of are also telling us the trends and the spec buildings that people are looking for and how things are moving more inland. And, well, one of the site selectors said, million square foot buildings are still needed, while the other ones are saying, no, you only need like 50,000 square feet buildings. I think for our area, the 50,000, 70,000 is what we need. We don't need a million square foot building. But yeah, so we do those a couple times a year. Our next one will probably be in the Austin area. And again, it's just really to familiarize some of those people with what we have, our workforce. We really push the soldiers exiting out of the military as a very important and valuable labor force as well. So a lot of them aren't familiar with that, but that was that trip. It was a big trip. Pop-up, as Fred mentioned also, my notes. The pop-up market that we were scheduled to have in May has been postponed until June 10th. We have 35 vendors so far, which is not bad for our first little event. And as he also mentioned, we're doing a pop-up job fair in conjunction with that. So Brittany's been working with going to different businesses, especially those that say they're hiring, and she'll kind of create a database and work with them to where they can hire people locally as well. So people locally will know where they can come and find a job, and we'll create a site for that as well. Our monthly workshops will be on pause through the summer just because the numbers drop. There's
We might find an SBA lender could help us on that building. I don't know, but we'll check and see. But-
She's gotta go through all that whole
Yep,
file,
yep.
the different kind of SBA
Right.
loans there are. And that's all I have.
What's the location of your pop-up down there?
It'll be at the Narrows.
The Narrows?
Yeah. Yeah. And we've had, I'll just say kudos, we've had a lot of good support from Public Works and Streets in terms of how we would handle traffic flow and parking out there and keep it safe, so.
Thank you, Diane. Oh. Thank you, Diane. Item I2, Executive Director's Report, Fred Welch.
Well, I'll comment, first of all, thanking Diane for that trip. I was at a Select USA summit. This is put on by the Department of Commerce, and it's strictly attracting foreign companies, foreign investors who are interested in either coming to the U.S. or expanding in the U.S. This was a large, well-attended conference. We were part of a booth set up by an organization we belong to called Team Texas. Literally got back, and I would just call these 200 leads at this point that we're gleaming through to see if we can develop a couple of prospects out of that. But I think the more important part of that business and that visit was the time that I spent with our two projects related to infrastructure assistance with the EDA and the rail study grant. I was able to meet with representatives at Congressman Carter's office, also with OLDCC regarding the grant, getting some timetables in line so that we stay on track to make those obligations. Just had a meeting with Judge Miller, May 22nd, have in receipt of a letter of support from his office for that EDA grant, and we also received one just this morning from CENTAG, Central Texas Council of Governments, so we're in good shape on that. We have, at the county's perspective, of course, they're looking at infrastructure, but they're really looking at high-speed internet, just to lay that out, and particularly what we might do to have a better linkage between Copperas Cove and Gatesville, since we have a kind of a hub over here with CenturyLink, and how we might be able to expand that. And that's, a lot of that is market-driven, but there may be some federal money that might help extend that fiber into more rural areas. So that's something I'm keen on, because I think if we expand past that Fort Hood property or Fort Cavazos property, we're going to need to have those kind of utilities out there anyway. So hoorah for that. Soils testing got completed on the Mashburn Drive project. Actually about the same time, I think it was around the middle of the month. It'll be about another 3 weeks before that comes back. I have been in contact with our Asian company, Black Dragon, on that, and regarding also some letters of commitment, which hopefully will be coming forward here in the next couple of weeks. So things are moving very well. I think there's a bill that just cleared the Senate and is on the governor's desk for signature. It will go into law September 1st, which favors the truck driving school out at the Narrows in terms of, at this point, you have to have a Texas driver's license to apply for a CDL. So they have amended legislation that will allow anyone who has a valid driver's license from another state to at least apply for a temporary commercial driver's license in Texas, which will allow those exiting soldiers that don't have a Texas driver's license to enroll in that program. The short side of that is they probably can double their student capacity. They are talking at then the possibility of having to expand that school, whether we do it out there in the Narrows or somewhere else, to have additional resources. So we're looking good there. I think as I say, we're moving forward. I keep calling this the Fort Hood Rail Project. Actually, we're going to have an acronym for it that'll be Cavazos RAIL, and I'm yet to tell you what RAIL stands for, but it'll have to do with rail infrastructure, I can tell you that. We will be working with the city, and as I say, there is a 10% match requirement. Some of that can be in-kind services as far as if we're managing the project ourselves, but I would envision there'll be, as I say, some cash involved with that, which we are projecting into next year's budget. But we are looking at Friday to try to get at least the, well, we're past pre-application. We'll actually have the application in with a notification in July and an RFP on the street to select a consultant in August or September. So I still anticipate having an open house at our new office, probably in Q1 of the next fiscal year. We'll get some of this stuff out of the way. I have been in touch with First Houston Properties, and as I say, they're still kind of looking at Q3 for the possibility of a spec building, but we have thrown a couple of potential projects at them that would involve build-to-suit, so something could happen a little quicker. We'll see. The newsletters continue to go out to me. They continue to get better each month. I hope you're on the distribution list, getting our branding, our message out. And those are really the key points. As far as anything upcoming, Diane and I are down to visit the Texas Economic Development Council Summer Conference in Allen, Texas. I think that's June 21 through 23. I'm kind of 50-50 whether I'll be at that myself or be back here. We'll see how schedules and deadlines are at that point in time. But there is an event on the 22nd of June, and I'm going to throw it out. I'm going to throw it out at Rotary tomorrow. The Copperas Cove High School is sponsoring a Build a Bike Day. They have identified 20 at-risk individuals, I'm guessing in the high school area, who could use a bicycle. So they have unassembled bicycles that they need some adults to help these young kids assemble. So we're looking for 20 volunteers at the high school on the 22nd from, they say from 9 to noon. I can anticipate it taking 3 hours to put a bicycle together, although I did spend 6 putting some shelves together once. But anyway, it'd be a good event, and anyone who might be interested, if you kind of contact us, we'll get with the CTE coordinator, let her know for sure. June 22nd, to be on a Thursday, 9 in the morning, out at the high school. And
Bring flyers for youth group?
you sure can, whatever you want to do. I'm sure she'd be real happy, okay? But I think it's a cool event. And they already have the bikes, now they're just looking for, and they'll provide the tools. Now we're just looking for so like I say, some adults, which if it's like me, I'm probably going to ask some poor kid to say, I don't know what this instruction book says, why don't you put it together, and I'll just watch him do it. But anyway, we'll see where.
Tina did make a post on our Facebook
Yes.
page, and it's got the link for where you can sign up.
Okay, I'll go take a look at it.
Right. So, lots of things starting to kind of take place. And as I say, there will be a chamber workshop at their board meeting in June. I know it's the latter part of June. I don't have the date. And they will be bringing in the former CEO from the Killeen Chamber, John Crutchfield, to kind of facilitate a strategic planning session. So we'll see what the outcome is on that.
Any questions for Fred? Okay. Ryan, if you don't mind me asking, do you have any updates on the Constitution Project, timeline, any of those?
It will happen.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Constitution will will probably start breaking ground within the next month. We are actually working on wrapping up the MLK and Hardeman project because those projects are so close and they are a side street kind of thoroughfare from Business 190. We want to make sure that we don't have conflicts of closed roads in there, but contracts are signed and
When will that one be done?
which one? MLK and Hardeman. That should be completed in June.
Brady looks skeptical.
It's, yeah, and, you know, it's a long project. Once you break that ground and you deal with underground utilities, it's interesting. City Council actually approved an action item to fully mill and overlay Hardeman because we had so many cuts on that road. So,
Just a little bit.
yep.
And I will say, as a part of the third grant that the city's working with, and we're assisting at Fort Cavazos, which is using another grant, we're actually funding will be an S-turn coming off of 9 so we can get onto Constitution. And that will be the city's match to hopefully some ramps that will go on to Tank Destroyer Boulevard to facilitate moving their truck facility off of Clark Road. And here goes Ryan again.
Can I give an update on that?
Yes,
Sure,
sir.
yeah.
So TxDOT's recommendation is not to do that S-curve onto Constitution. It was basically will be a turnaround from State Highway 9 onto Business 190 after it immediately intersects with Business 190 eastbound. So if you can imagine, there's some median space in between east and westbound Business 190 under the bridge that goes west on US 190. There will be a turnaround at that location is what TxDOT is recommending. Their initial recommendation was the S-curve
Yep.
because they didn't like the turnaround. They have changed.
Now they like the turnaround.
They have made made a recommendation now that they would prefer the turnaround than the S-curve. And it's all about elevations and the short stopping distances.
Yeah, it's a tight squeeze in there.
Yes.
No doubt.
Going east
I
out
need
of,
you to draw a picture of it because I
and you
can't
come
use
down
full
onto
left.
Business 190.
I'll show you really quickly.
The south loop that goes off towards Kentner.
Yes.
That's on kind of your left as you're coming down on you would go past that and then
Oh, okay.
curve.
So it's not necessarily.
But that would be going across, if you S-curve that, are you not S-curving right into the people coming off
You would be coming right into a lane.
to a break off going to
He's gonna
around the south loop?
Is it like going all the way to the park?
No.
Is that
Oh, already passed it. Okay, so this, if you can see on the screen, is just a straight exit from State Highway 9 onto Business 190. That was the first and initial recommendation that TxDOT gave. In our communication, we recommended that it be not an immediate merge, but come out and actually, as Mr. Welch described, an S to intersect with Constitution. After evaluating that with TxDOT, TxDOT came back and said their recommendation is this. This is State Highway 9 merging with US 190. There would be a turnaround going into Business US 190 westbound. And this is that bridge that I was talking about that is considered the bypass westbound.
So that is going,
Do you know where the city, the Welcome to the City of Copper's Cove sign is? It's
That's-
that little,
That's right here.
right there.
Yeah, that's that little dot right there.
Yeah.
And just so you gather the full scope, this bridge right here is currently a westbound lane. It will become an eastbound bridge, and there will be a second bridge built just to the north of it for westbound traffic once the I-14 project gets built.
So, one quick question, I'm ecstatic about that loop. When that loop is created, can we create a double turn lane onto Robert Griffin III on the westbound business 190, at the westbound 190 intersection?
Yeah, completely separate from that project, but that is something that we have discussed with TxDOT a number of times. Their concern is what they call turning radius, and so we're trying to overcome that hesitancy from TxDOT to do that.
Okay. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Cool.
Do we have any items for future agendas? We have no executive session today, so the time is now 12:53 p.m. We will adjourn this meeting of the Copperas Cove Economic Development Corporation. Thank you, everyone.